Adding wainscoting to a room can really add style and character to a space. I'm going to show you a few examples of renovations where we've added wainscoting before I get into the installation of a DIY project so you can learn how to install wainscoting in your home. Hi, I'm Scott. I design, build, and repair woodworking pieces. I'm opening up the doors to my shop to help you become a better woodworker. This wainscoting design has a bit of formal shape to it, but a bit of casual as well, so it's sort of a blended feel. I'll show you what the parts are. The top here is a wainscoting cap, that's a standard molding, and the baseboard here, which is a standard molding. In the middle, we've got frames, and then we've got a panel. The panel is standard wainscot paneling you can get at a home improvement store. These frames are just 1/2-inch material that I cut down to the size that I need. The detail on the inside here is a cupboard mold, and I get that from a local lumber supplier. So once it's all put together, you can see the style here. It just has a nice warm feel to it. This wainscoting is the same as what I just showed you, except it doesn't have the beaded panel on the inside, and you can see how much more of a formal look that gives it. If you'd like to learn how to install wainscoting on angles like this, we've got a video that shows you that as part of the staircase renovation. In this bathroom renovation, we had a knee wall that was bumping out in this room that was really awkward. We used wainscoting to conceal that and give it some design purpose. The wainscoting goes around the room, and we have a matching medicine cabinet that goes in with the character of the room. The wainscoting is pine, tongue and groove, and it takes longer to put this together, but it does give it a more classic feel. I'm now on my way over to my friend Andy's house where he wants to install wainscoting similar to this. We're going to use a paneling product to make the process a little easier, and we'll walk through step by step to show you how you can learn how to install wainscoting in your home. Hey Andy.
Morning Scott, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, welcome.
So Andy, tell me about the tools you've got here.
Well, I have my workbench. Always have to have the workbench. Got the miter saw and the circular saw, and that's it for power tools.
Okay, that's perfect. That's all we need for the job here. And you were able to pick up the material that we were talking about, the paneling and the trim?
Yep, I've got it all. It's all ready to go.
Perfect. Okay. Well, let's head on inside to the hallway here and we'll take a look at the project.
Sounds good.
So your walls are pretty banged up here, and that's typical of an entryway like this. What happens is when everyone's coming in, they sort of scrape things and bang them around. And that's actually why putting up wainscoting is a good idea, because it gives a really hard surface, and that's why wainscoting was really invented. So what we're going to do is you've bought the beaded paneling to go on here,
yep.
And then we're going to add some elements to it. So this is a wainscoting cap, and it's going to go about here, and it can look kind of plain for a finish. So what we're going to do is add this astragal mold about here with a plain board, and that's going to dress it up and really give a good balance between the baseboard and this top cap. So we started the baseboard here. First of all, take off the doorstop, and that just unscrews. And then what we're going to do is cut off the top here, this seam, to release the baseboard from the drywall, and then pull this off. So after scoring these joints here, I use a putty knife to get in and loosen everything up. And then we can start pulling it off. Okay Andy, so if you want to put the wainscoting in place, what we're going to do is figure out the height of it and the baseboard as well. The height of wainscoting should be about 1/3 of the room, and we've got a 9-foot ceiling here, so we're looking at about 36 inches. This paneling here only takes us up to 32, but because we've got a 4-inch baseboard, we can hide a gap. What we're going to do is bring it up to 35 inches to raise the height of the wainscoting panel. Then what's going to happen is we're going to put astragal mold on, and this is going to hide the seam between this paneling and the decorative trim we're putting up here. And then on top of that, we're going to put the wainscoting cap. Now the trick here is to figure out what looks best, and it's just a bit of experimentation. We've decided here we're going to use 4.5 inches to give us a nice balance between this trim here and the baseboard. If this was much larger, it would look too overscale for the baseboard, where this might be more appropriate for a 5.5-inch baseboard. And if we make it too small, then you can see it doesn't quite look right. So we've got our lines here set. We're going to draw them around the room, and then we can start installing the paneling. So we just need to line up the level and then draw the line. So we've got our wainscoting here with our cut line, and we're going to use a circular saw to cut this. And Andy, have you used a circular saw that much?
I have, but not a lot. I could use some tips on how to use it.
Well, it's not that difficult to use if you know how to do it the right way. The first thing is your stance, making sure your feet are planted, you're not overextending yourself, and you can see up here where you're cutting. The key to an accurate cut is making sure that this line here is lined up with your cut line. This represents the waist on the cut that you're making, so this line here, make sure you follow it all the way through on that line, and you'll have a perfectly lined up cut.
We cut the panel to install, but we had some problems with the wall. The wall has a bow in it. So we shaved down the wall so we can install the panel and not have any bows in the final product.
We put this board in place here, and this is the edge that we didn't cut. We want a nice straight line here. So there's going to be very little caulking required before we put the paint in. Nice fit. To install the paneling, the first thing we do is mark out the stud locations. That way our nails will go into solid wood instead of just drywall. Then we cover the wall in panel adhesive. This is what holds the paneling in place, and we drive a few nails in just to hold it while it dries. Andy surprised me by pulling out a nail gun. I didn't know he had one of those. It made our job a little easier, but you don't need a nail gun to install wainscoting. What you can do is pre-drill a hole to get through the paneling, and then drive in a finishing nail. You'll get the same result as what we're doing here. Andy and I have installed the wainscoting here. Now we're working our way around the room. And the easiest way to measure this is in millimeters, because it's much more accurate than having to figure out small fractions. So we're writing out the measurements here. We're going to cut all the panels, and then we can install the rest. Now the wall's all ready, and we can move on to the trim. So we've got baseboard to go on, we've got this astragal mold, and then we've got the wainscot cap. And what we do is look for the inside corners where you've got double corners. This is the most difficult wall to be able to put trim in. So we're going to miter both sides here, play around with the fit and get it right, and then it's easy to move on either side of this to go around the room.
I understand that we have to cut this at the angle, and we know the distance from the right side to the left side, but what I'm not sure is how to measure the distance to the outside when we're cutting based on the front.
So the trick here is to hook the measuring tape onto the end, and then go down to the other end and make the measurement from there. What I do is I mark the end of the board where I want the point to be. And then I put a mark this way to remind me what angle I'm cutting. So Andy's going to cut a cut that comes across this way, and that point is where that end measurement needs to be. The way to accurately cut to a line is by starting off wide and progressively making cuts to get closer and closer to your line. That way you can ensure the saw blade is going exactly where you want it. So we've now got this in here as a test fit, and it's a good snug fit. So we've got the next piece to do is right here and on that end, and what that'll do is once we get those mitered pieces in there, it'll just confirm that this is the right length. If it's too long, we'll just shorten it a little bit to get a nice snug fit. So we'll slide this piece in here and make sure we've got a nice miter, and we know that we've got the right length on that wall. We've used this as another fence to get this awkward back on here, and just by setting the fence here we can get the degree of angle we need. So here we've got a 45. So Andy, if you just want to creep up on it, we want to keep that line at the front there because that's our length measurement. Andy's making out really well learning how to cut these miters, and we're just finishing off the wainscot cap before we move on to measure the astragal mold and put that in place. On the end here where we've got a square cut, what we need to do is chamfer for this edge to put a 30-degree cut on it, and that just transitions it from this molding that's sticking out to the door frame. So with this 30-degree cut here, we can now transition this protruding wainscot cap into the door trim. So Andy, what we're going to do is we're going to put glue on all these joints, and that'll just help keep them tight. We're going to nail them in so they shouldn't move, but this will just help over time keep the joint nice and tight. The wainscoting cap, you end up with gaps behind here, and what you need to do is figure out where the studs are and then nail in with an Ardox nail. An Ardox has a twist to it, and that gives it gripping capacity when you've got it nailed into a stud. So you can see here, I just need to push on this to get a nice tight seam. And he's going to pre-drill a hole so we don't split the wood, and then we can nail it in. On a corner like this where we've got two boards meeting, there's a bit of a gap, and that's normal with paneling. And so buying a corner decorative piece here, we can conceal that. So we're just going to measure that and nail it in place. So the last part is to cut the astragal mold, and Andy, compared to the wainscot cap, this is a breeze. So once you get those cut, we'll put it on here with some of that panel adhesive and a couple finishing nails just to hold it in place, but that glue is what's going to hold that on. So we have a spacer block here, and this allows us to make sure we get a consistent height. So nail hole filling is just a matter of putting the filler in and leaving it a little bit high so that you can sand it down. Caulking can be a bit of a mystery. It's really just making sure you understand how this works. The caulking needs to go inside that groove. So what I'm doing is forcing it into that groove. Then the second step is just to take a container with water and dip your finger in it to get it wet so that the caulking won't stick to it. And then it's a matter of smoothing that out in one long pass. And you got a perfect seam. So Andy, you've done a great job at learning how to use the saw and being able to put that trim on there, and things are looking really good. You're at the finishing stages, so now it's priming and painting and sanding and that stuff that takes a bit of time. So do you have any questions at this point in terms of what's left?
No, I think you've covered everything I need to finish off the task. I think I can have it done probably a few days.
Okay. Well, what I'll do is leave you to it, but give me a call, send me a text if you got any questions. And when you're all set, we'll come back and we'll do a photo shoot and we'll show the viewers what your job looks like.
All right. Thanks,
Scott. Thanks, Andy. So Andy gave me a call and he's all ready to show me the final product. Let's go on and take a look. Hey, Andy, how you doing?
Hey, Scott. Come on in.
So Andy, before we take a look at the final product, tell me as the homeowner what your experience was like doing this project.
It was good. I got a nice finished product. It looks great. It wasn't that hard to do. And yeah, I loved the whole experience.
Great. Well, if we've got some viewers that are looking to take on a project like this, any tips for them?
Yeah. First of all, it's not as hard as you'd think. And when you're cutting, you should always start large and work your way in. Otherwise, you end up throwing some material out, which I did. The last part would be order of operations. Make sure your caulking, your sanding, your painting is all in the right order so you don't have to repeat steps.
That's great. Well, let's take a look.
All right.
Wow, Andy, this really came out well. You've done a great job finishing it. Nice clean line on the top here, and all the holes filled. The caulking looks great. So you've done a really good job. Andy, this not only looks great, I think it's adding value to your home. If you look at the before and after pictures, it's really changed the style and really brought it more up to date. So great job in pulling this off, and thank you for letting me into your home and helping out with this project.
Thank you very much for coming in and coaching me through this. Yeah, it looks wonderful, and I appreciate all your help and tips and tricks.
No problem. No problem. And if you, our viewers, want to see more videos like this where we go into people's homes and help them through the renovations, leave some comments below. We'd love to hear your feedback. Until next time, enjoy your time in the workshop.